Okay, so could you describe some feelings that you had as people were being drafted and enlisting or leaving for war?
Well, of course it was upsetting. I had two older brothers, and one already had a business of his own, much older than I, and the other one was in college. But he was, of course, in the draft. They allowed him to still be in school, but then, of course, once Pearl Harbor happened, he was immediately pulled out of college.
Did he ever go back and finish college?
He didn't finish at Iowa State. It was just where he was.
Okay.
He finally finished at University of Nebraska when he was in the service.
So how did the U.S. entry into World War II change your daily responsibilities?
Well, I was actually a senior in high school when the war started in 1945. In 1941, when Pearl Harbor happened. And, of course, it changed our way of living because, we had rationing, and everyone became very patriotic. This was very different than now. I mean, everyone was all for saving and, so that has, since we lived on a farm, it really didn't change our way of eating because, we lived on a farm. We had lots of food, so that wasn't a problem.
What ways was living and rationing? Did it strain your lifestyle at all, or just still you had animals so it took care of any rationing that you had?
Of course, sugar was rationed, and we sweetened everything with honey, and to this day I don't like honey. But you got only so much sugar. Also, only so many pairs of shoes, because I suppose the leather went for some other purpose, and gas was rationed, because we only had one car anyway, but and farmers were allowed a little more gas, because if they had a tractor they had to farm.
Yeah.
So maybe gas wasn't quite a factor with us, as long as I was home. But there were clothing. No one tried to buy more than they needed. Everybody was saving, for the war effort. They really were.
That's good. Was there something that you liked but you only got on special occasions, like maybe cakes or something, because of the rationing?
Oh, nylons were rationed. I mean, to get a pair of nylon hose was a really big treat, because you didn't very often see nylons. It was more when I was in college, of course. And so, yes, that certainly was pretty special if you saw a pair of nylon hose.
Were you concerned about the possibility of another attack on U.S. soil?
I don't think that I was, probably the age that I wasn't. We, had newspapers, but again, maybe you can, because you're about the same age that I was at that time, we didn't read a lot about the war.
Yeah.
We're always happy when they said we won a battle or something. But I don't know that I worried as much. Probably let my parents do the worrying.
How much information was available specifically about concentrations, death camps, that kind of a thing?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing?
We knew nothing. As far as maybe my parents knew something. They certainly didn't share it. I don't think there was anything in the papers. We had a radio. We took 2 different newspapers. At least it wasn't talked about. Even in college, I don't remember anything that they talked about.
I can imagine why. Did you try to remain in contact with your brothers while they were in the military, or just anyone?
Oh yes, they wrote letters, not necessarily to me, but to my parents.
Just kind of to the family?
My sister saved all those letters and made a scrapbook for them when they came home, and they really enjoyed the fact that they got to read it. Only one of my brothers was ever sent overseas. They both were in for the full time, but only one went actually in the Japan invasion, but I mean the Japan part of the war. It's some South Sea island that I think something like, I've forgotten the name of the island now where he was.
Some little island. That...
Yeah, there were so many of those little islands. Now I've forgotten where it was, but they came home safely. I mean, he came home safely.
That's good.
And my other brother too.
That's good.
Where was your other brother at?
Pardon?
Where was your other brother at that didn't get sent?
He was several times was supposedly to go overseas and then was not sent. Several places in the United States. He finally was sent to Panama, was the nearest he came to going. But he was, of course, younger, and when he was at Iowa State, he was sent to officers training at Fort Leonard Wood. And I know we went down when he graduated, became a second lieutenant, and they were all going to be shipped out. We thought this was the last we would see him, but then he was sent someplace else in the United States.
What was your reaction to hearing about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, we were very sad because we knew, like I said, two brothers were already drafted. They were going to be called up. There wasn't any doubt about that. So, no, everybody was very upset. And of course, we heard President Roosevelt give his big speech on the radio, you know, how terrible the Japanese were, and, you know, I can almost hear his voice yet, you know, that we were going to declare war. And so that, I mean, like I say, everybody responded, you know.
Yeah. How did your relationships among friends and family change, or did it change at all?
I don't think it changed at all. I mean, except that everybody had something in common, I guess.
Yeah.
I went off to college too, so right away, and see, I graduated from college in 1946, and the war was over in 1945. During that year, 45, 46, it was over, and then the man that I married came to Parsons in that last semester of my senior year. And most of them had been in, you see, 5 years. They'd been drafted, and he'd been in 5 years. But see, the war was over. And maybe you want to know that at college there were no men. It was a women's college. I mean, there were a few that were 4F, you know, for some reason, maybe their eyesight, or maybe, you know, they had something wrong. Mm-hmm. Nice people, but they were, you know, not in their draft. And so it was mainly women. Yeah, we became, you know, very good friends. And one other thing you maybe don't know about, along the West Coast, you know, there were lots of Japanese Americans, and so they decided that they had to move those people into camps. Partly, they said, for their safety, because a Japanese always looks like a Japanese, whereas our background, mine is German, but I don't look any different than anybody else. And so that was their excuse for moving them, but a lot of them were second generation American, but they moved them, you know, they owned farms and moved the people, but some of the children, I mean the daughters and sons, they let go to college in the Midwest. So we had 5 or 6 Japanese American students at Parsons.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
How did they feel about their family being moved to camp?
They were not bitter at all. They were the nicest people you ever would see. And they, as far as they were concerned, they were very happy here. And we thought sometime later that, we thought, did we really treat them well? I know we did, but they said the happiest years of their lives because everybody treated them just like everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
I just am sad when I think about it. But,
About the camps?
because when they went back, they didn't find the same thing.
Yeah.
No, they visited us later. I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
That's okay.
So they came back and talked to you later and told
they came
you
back to
about
visit.
what it was like to...
They became doctors, lawyers.
Mm-hmm. Were they able to find their family when they went back
yes,
west?
Yes, they were. And the government finally, gave them money. And it still wouldn't compensate from being uprooted from your home.
Mm-hmm.
But that was sad to me.
Yeah, that was a tough time.
But it was true. When some of the servicemen came back, they were very bitter. The Japanese were very cruel in battle.
Mm-hmm.
And so their lives were in danger, somewhat.
Right,
So,
right. So in retrospect,
yeah.
you can understand why those
Yeah,
decisions
you
were
can
made.
understand.
But yet, you still, since you knew individuals personally, it kind of brought it home to you.
And they were worried about, some of these students hadn't quite finished college when the veterans came back. And I actually was away, I taught away at a high school the next year, and so I wasn't here when a lot of the veterans came back. I came back then the next year, and so they were worried at how they treat, there were some still here, but they charmed them. So,
They
I
did.
liked them too.
So, how'd you like the video?
I thought it was very interesting, and she had a lot to say on the subject.
Oh, really? So, I kind of liked how she was talking about when her brother had to go away for the war and how she had to, cope with that and
She had to help
figure
out
some
a lot
stuff
more
out.
at home.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how she was talking about the Japanese and how she got so emotional when she was talking about them.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting because, I was kind of glad that she let us come in and interview her so we could answer some of these questions that we were thinking about. So I also kind of liked how she was talking about Pearl Harbor and
Yeah.
because that kind of tied in with the Japanese bombing it.
Yeah.
With her seeing those Japanese kids at school and everything like that, and it all just kind of tied in together, which was kind of nice.
I think that it was different how everybody was blaming the Japanese for it, and she felt so sad for them.
Yeah.
And so she opposite than most other people.
Well, I kind of also thought it was pretty interesting when she said about the nylon clothes and stuff.
And how she missed that.
Yeah, she missed a lot of stuff.
I thought it was interesting how they were saying that nobody knew anything about the death camps and what Hitler was doing.
Yeah. She got a little bit emotional about that, didn't she? Well, I kind of liked having her let us interview her.
Yep, me too.
That was pretty cool.